In general, the reputation of the Carcano rifle has suffered due to its association with the poor performance of the Italian military it served, the condition they are in by the time they are imported to the United States, a perception not helped by the recent RTI Ethiopian cache, and the loading of commercial ammo that uses bullets available as opposed to the dimensions used by the Italian military greatly affecting accuracy. In reality, it was a decent rifle that was the result of a bit of foresight by Italy, as they were waited for as long as they could through the flurry of innovation that was the result of the advent of smokeless powder in the late 1880s, early 1890s, and adopted a serviceable rifle that was something they could actually afford to produce. This saved them from needing to adopt another type of action, unlike many of their peers, until after their defeat in the Second World War. The Carcano action, mated with the M-block clip-fed Mannlicher magazine, would be the basis of the long rifle, a myriad of carbines and special troop rifles, as well as the short rifle, which is the subject of today's video, the M38 in 7.35 by 51mm. After the First World War, most countries re-examined the rifles they armed their soldiers with. The United States and Great Britain already adopted a short rifle prior to the war, with other warring nations, including Italy, fielding old world long rifles as their main infantry rifle. The poor economic conditions of Europe, as well as being awash in surplus firearms, would dictate frugality when it came to redesigning rifles in the 1920s. Italy ceased production of most Marshall firearms in 1919, and the Carcano rifle, already born in pragmatism and frugality, would need to be recycled as much as possible, as studies showed the long rifle should be abandoned as most fighting happened within 300 meters. This was the lowest setting on the long rifles and would go up to an optimistic 2,000 meters. Many soldiers would miss their opponent unless they're at point-blank range, as the curved trajectory of the bottle-nosed, heavy 6.5mm bullet would go high at under 300 yards. Long rifles were unneeded and cumbersome as well for trench warfare, and soldiers who could get their hands on a TS or cavalry carbine would love them. Italy decided to cut down their long rifles into TS-style rifles starting in 1924, creating the Model 9124. This would change up the rear sight to only go out to 1,500 meters. As they ran out of old rifles to convert, they would begin producing new rifles again in 1928. With the rise of fascism, Benito Mussolini desired a more prominent footprint outside of Italy, while protecting his northern border from another Anschluss by Germany. Italy would invade Ethiopia in 1935 using mustard gas and other chemical weapons, as well as becoming involved in the Spanish Civil War in 1936 on the side of Francisco Franco, where bombing of civilians and terror campaigns became commonplace. While on the winning side of both these conflicts, questions of the effectiveness of the Italian military were brought to light. Italy would also look to improve upon their infantry rifles. It was claimed that the heavy 6.5mm round penetrated too well in Ethiopia, passing right through an enemy combatant without stopping them. How do you say "ma stoppin' pa" in Italian? A flatter shooting round was also desired. While Italy would have loved to adopt either a semi-auto rifle or convert current rifles to a caliber such as 8mm Mauser, the economy and frugality dictated they again recycle as much as possible. Also, an envisioned mechanized and mobile army where soldiers' rifles needed to be short and handy, a full-power cartridge was seen as overkill. This would lead to the adoption of the rifle to firing the 7.35 by 51mm round. Now, in trying to dig into the history of the development of the 7.35 by 51 round, I can't find much in the English language sources. So someone who knows Italian looking to get their master's in history, or a channel like CN Arsenal who does primary level research, will have to dive deeper into this in the future. Both Riccio's Italian small arms and Chegia and Simonelli's Carcano rifle barely throw a couple sentences each to only say that the round was developed by Colonel Giuseppe Minardi along with a couple ammunition manufacturing firms, and the round was ready by 1935. What is important is the specs. The round would use the same basic case as a 6.5mm round, flared the neck to accommodate the 7.35mm bullet that was tapered rather than conical. This meant that the same receiver, magazine, bolt, clips, and cartridge cases could be used. Only the barrels would have to be rebored and chambers slightly modified. Major Roberto Borgheim was assigned to the Army's Technical Service in 1935 to design a new rifle that used as much as possible of what was available. Model 1891 barrels that were too worn to be cut down into the 9124 were previously set aside and reserved for possible future use. The first test for the new round would be the rifles fitted with these barrels bored for the new caliber, but the length unmodified. The result would be deformation of the bullet by the rifling before it left the barrel. Over the next 3 years, experimentation would yield which twist and rifling worked best, along with the optimal 21.1-inch barrel. The chamber would only need slight modification, as the case used for the 7.35 is practically the same as the 6.5. A notched rear sight would be set to 200 meters, which replaced any previous adjustable sight. A new short-bladed folding bayonet was adopted for this rifle, and I'll talk more about that in a bit, as I've been lucky enough to obtain one. This rifle would have a turn-down bolt handle, and stocks from the M91 could not be reused and had to be manufactured. Early versions of these rifles would have a handguard that went all the way out to the end cap, while the later versions would only come past the barrel band. The cleaning rod would be kept in 3 sections in the butt trap. This would be adopted as the Fusil model 9138, referred to here on out as the Model 38. Rifles would initially be built using the worn-out barrels before new production would commence at Terni, Gardone-Vitrompia, Brescia, and Beretta. Italy would be forced to abandon production of the rifles in the new round as the start of World War II made it difficult to switch over, and it wouldn't be logistical to produce 2 different calibers. Production of the 7.35 rifles would only happen in 1938 and 39, with a few sprinkled in 1940. Initially given to elite troops, they'd be removed and replaced with older M91 style rifles in 6.5, and production of the M38 would switch to rifles that shot the 6.5mm round. The caliber would be marked just behind the rear sight to help avoid confusion. The rear sight would be zeroed for 300 meters on the 6.5mm rifles. Only around 296,000 Model 38 rifles and 7.35 would be produced before reverting back to 6.5, of which 660,000 of these are produced. 38s and 7.35 already issued would be removed from frontline service and moved far to the rear. Alright, the M38 Carcano with this sweet folding knife bayonet. I will show that in more detail in the video. It also has a really nice looking cartouche on it. This one was sent to the Finns, who probably promptly rejected it as this doesn't seem to have too much wear and tear on it. So let's fire this and see how it does. I'm using some of this Bannerman ammo. The sight is set at 200 yards or 200 meters, which is a hell of a lot better than the previous ones where your minimum was 300. So let's see if I can't find a hold on this. That should drop out the bottom. Nice. Italy would make a deal with Finland at the beginning of the Winter War, 100,000 M38s and 7.35, but a shipment of 94,500 would be delayed until summer 1940 due to the Axis non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union. These rifles would totally miss the Winter War, but be issued to second-line troops at the start of the Continuation War in 1941. The Finns did not like this rifle, and it became known as the rifle that gets left behind, as anyone issued one would drop it like a hot potato to replace it with a captured Soviet Mosin. The non-standard ammo, in-block clips, and fixed rear sight prevented very experienced, well-qualified soldiers from zeroing these rifles. Finn rifles would have a taller blade front sight and it'd be zeroed at 150 meters. These rifles would be pushed to second line duty in basic training by the fall of 1941. They would be issued to civilians in 1943 to fend off Soviet partisan terror attacks. While VKT would be asked to develop an adjustable rear sight in 1943, the order would be canceled in 1944. One thing the Finns did like was the folding knife bayonet, which inspired some of their bayonets in the 1960s. Their leftover cache of 74,300 M38s would be traded to Inner Arms for Sten submachine guns in 1951, and Inner Arms would sell the Carcanos in the US in the 1950s and 60s. My example of the M38 rifle, as well as the bayonet, were part of this Finn cache, as evidenced by the Finnish Army SA mark on the receiver and on the bayonet. This rifle was built in 1939 at Turney, and it is numbers matching. It has an absolutely beautiful cartouche on the buttstock. The bayonet actually cost me more than the rifle, as it's fairly rare. Now, I'm mainly a military firearms collector and have just started to obtain bayonets for many of my rifles. Bayonets in general have skyrocketed in price over the last generation. This is mainly due to there being far more bayonet collectors around the world than firearms collectors due to gun laws in various countries. Still, I wanted one of these folding knife bayonets to display with my M38, as I think they're some of the coolest bayonets made. In general, Italy was ahead of the game when it came to bayonets with their rifles, adopting knife bayonets while many other countries had spike or sword bayos. Now, the M38 bayonet could be used as a regular knife, be mated to the rifle with a scabbard like normal. Make sure she's on here. Or fold back and stored in the rifle in the same manner as an affixed bayonet. The Type 1, which is the most rare, had a latch lock that had a pinch for disengaging when the rifle was fired. Only 29,000 of these would be made. The Type 2 would have a spring button lock that proved to work much better. As the war wore on, a fixed blade would be made for time and frugality's sake. I enjoyed firing this rifle as it's a handy package with little recoil. I was able to procure some new made ammo by Bannerman. Keep an eye out for a review on that in the near future. Since this is a Finn marked rifle, it should be zeroed for 150 meters. The folded bayonet proved to be very unobtrusive. Now, I know I skipped the early history of the Carcano in general in this video, but if you want to learn more about that, check out this playlist right over here. Please join the GOA and get $5 off your membership by clicking on the link in the description. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.